You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in. We were really
a Mamamia podcast.
Comedians can be really, really tricky to interview or even talk to, because when it's your job to be funny, that can bring a bunch of pressure for you and also a bunch of expectations when people meet you in person. I've interviewed a few comedians on No Filter over the years, and I've had a couple of shockers in there. But I'm delighted to say today's episode wasn't one of them. It was the opposite, actually. And that's because there is something about Urzila Carlson.
If you show up 20 minutes early to a party, you're not a loser, you're smart, because they usually have the food out.
From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people from all walks of life tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. My name is Mia Friedman. I was in the Mamamia kitchen right before I did this interview with Urzila, and I mentioned I was talking to her, and then just suddenly everyone was shouting, "Oh my God, I love her." And that is exactly how I felt and how you're going to feel after you hear this conversation with her. Urzila Carlson's life has been anything but ordinary. She grew up in the same town as Charlize Theron in South Africa. She migrated to New Zealand in her late 20s, and she didn't decide to become a comedian until she was 32. And now, she's one of the funniest women in the country. She's one of the judges on The Masked Singer, a gig that came about when Lindsay Lohan couldn't make the second season, and some genius person decided that Urzila would be the perfect person to take her place, and she was. She also appears regularly on Have You Been Paying Attention, but her real day job is as a stand-up, and she's about to tour a new live show all about the last couple of years. It's called It's Personal, and it comes off the back of her hit Netflix stand-up special, Overqualified Loser.
You know, when you make that decision, you go, it's only 5 blocks, I'm going to walk it. And then after the 3rd block, you go, fuck, I should have taken an Uber.
Urzila is married to her wife, Julie, and they have 2 kids, and her story about how they met is a cracker. On this episode of No Filter, we discuss everything from hot flushes to the 8 weeks she spent in hotel quarantine last year and the jokes she chooses not to tell anymore. Enjoy this conversation with Urzila Carlson. The new show's called It's Personal because you spent so much time in lockdown over the last 2 years. How much time did you spend in lockdown?
8 weeks in hotel quarantine, and then a few times where I had to isolate either because of a close contact or because I got a head cold. My son's in kindy, so, they bring everything home. So, and then, of course, with every sniffle, you have to go get the test, and then you're waiting. So all up, I'd say about 10 weeks where I had to isolate and or hotel quarantine.
I've got friends with little kids who travel back and forth. They work in LA and have come back and forth. And some of them with little kids say that it's actually their dream. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, the first time it's like, this is great.
Yeah.
I had hot coffees, which you sort of forget. You're like, oh yeah, I made a coffee. And then you know what? I sat down and I drank it.
Yeah.
And that never happens. And the same with a bath. I was alone in the bath. Like now, if I want to go for a bath, I have to go, do I want both of them in there? How long can I have the bath by myself before they figure out that I'm in the bath and then both of them come in? And you don't get the back of the bath, you get the taps.
Yeah, you get the
taps.
taps.
So you're sitting with your ass on the plug and with the taps in your back. It's not a relaxing experience.
And then someone does a wee and it's not you.
And proudly so. Like my son would stand up and just pee, It's like, okay.
So when you were in quarantine, when did it go from being, oh, this is so lovely, when did it sort of go a bit bad, or did it never go bad for you?
I had one bad day in my Sydney quarantine. That was my very first one. Mentally, I had prepared as much as I could. I took a lot of stationery because that's sort of my happy place.
What do you do with the stationery?
Because I do a lot of writing, like just longhand, like I always have a little clipboard with where I just write stuff down. So I thought, okay, I had a few really good pens. I took some Sharpies. I took pages and papers and books and whatever. And I did a lot of writing in quarantine. But as soon as I got there was only those little cups that you get in hotels. And then I phoned, I said, sorry, could you just send up a coffee mug? Like I like a good mug of coffee. Like, I don't want a thimble.
No.
I need a cup of coffee, like a mug. And they go, sorry, we don't do that. It's COVID protocol. And I was like, it's a coffee mug. They go, yeah, but then we have to clean it. I said, all right, I'll break it at the end and you can just charge me for it. I just need a coffee mug. And then they said, no, we can't send you one. So immediately, because like my planning was so, there's going to be no problems. It's just me in the room. What could possibly go wrong? And then because I couldn't get the mug, then I went, okay, it's not a problem. I phoned my manager and I phoned my publicist who lives in Sydney. And I said, listen, can you please bring me a coffee mug? I will either replace it or wash it thoroughly.
Or
I
break
will
it.
dip it. Yeah, whatever. I said, I just need a coffee mug. Yeah, not a problem. Both of them were like, yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I will today still get that coffee mug.
Yeah.
I got that coffee mug 3 days later. And what they had done is they had a joke coffee mug printed of their photos on this coffee mug and then sent it to me as a gag. But by day 3 without a coffee mug, I was absolutely fuming. And at this stage, you know, when you go, I can't rely on anyone. No one has my back.
Yeah.
And then you just go, fuck everyone. And I was just so tense up. And then when I got the mug and I saw what they had done, I wasn't like, oh, they're actually sweet chicks after all. I was like, no. Yeah. So that was my Sydney meltdown. In Melbourne, when I was going through that, where I had to, as a close contact, be quarantined, I got worked up because, again, just one thing, like, in my mind, and I think it was about sunshine, because the anger was directed at myself, because I never look at the Airbnbs when they send me. They go, are you happy with this place? I go, I don't care. I'm just going to sleep here. I'm working 15 hours a day. I honestly don't give a shit. And then, because then, of course, the extra 2 weeks just sitting in there and there's no sunshine, and I wasn't allowed to leave to go out because it was all an enclosed building in Melbourne. So they didn't want me walking through the building to get outside, like if I was just at a house or whatever. So I was kind of stuck in there, and then they just got me a bit down, and I was like, okay, I need to snap out of this. And then I got some vitamin D tablets, and I got over myself.
You must have a lot of rituals for being on the road, do you? Because as a comedian, obviously you're travelling all the time, and travelling by yourself. I assume your wife Julie doesn't come with you and the kids don't come with you.
No, occasionally they do. I mean, we did a big trip a couple of years ago. I'm getting all the memories for it now. I'm missing it. Like we went LA, and then I left them in West Hollywood, and I went to Montreal to go do record my first special there. And then I did some gigs up there, and then I flew back to LA, got them. Then we went to London, then to Edinburgh, then back to London, then to Johannesburg, then to Cape Town, then sort of traveled through Africa, but then back to LA, took the kids to Disneyland, then went to Australia, then after that went back home. So I think that was like 3.5, 4 months on the road with the kids. So sometimes they do, but now, because my daughter's getting a bit older, it's harder now, because I don't want to take her out of school. But even now, I'm planning my tour for next year through Australia, and I'm already seeing long weekends, and trying to put so when there's the holidays that they can come with. But I'm also working a bit smarter now, where I just go in, do a couple of days, and then fly home, and hopefully I don't have to quarantine, because that's the only thing that kind of holds me back. I can't go back and forth.
When you've been away for a while and you come back home, is there a re-entry process that you have to go through? I mean, just kind of emotionally and logistically in your own household. So, because Julie's like a single mum when you're not there, and then you come back, and how do you re-establish yourself as part of the family each time?
Well, I mean, luckily, because the kids are small, so it's basically they just kind of immediately, as soon as they see me, it's like snap in on top of me. We're wrestling. It's, they're just happy. I'm sure as they get older and, sort of go into that tween and teen stage, it'll get harder. But at the minute, it's just, oh my God, you're here. And it's just, nuts. And then, sort of the re-entry is kind of just getting into the household stuff for me, like doing the washing and, because I don't do washing, I don't dust, I don't cook, I don't do, and that to me is like, that's home. So as soon as I walk in, sometimes if I get in, I can walk into 2 a.m. and I'll make a pancake batter for the next morning. I'll sort of start getting everything ready. And so I tried to sort of just scoop in like I was never not there, but not like just quietly. So I feel like I'm not taking over, because you can't just come in and go, what the hell has been happening since I've been gone,
Yeah.
So I just kind of come in and I'll go collect all the washing and my washing, empty out my bags and just sort of just do the household stuff. So I feel like I'm just sliding in and not bumping in.
So you don't like return as the prodigal mother or the Disneyland mum who's like, hey, party time? Because I imagine Julie, did you have to navigate Julie feeling resentful ever?
No, she's really good with, and I think it sort of really helps that from the beginning when, like she's been there from gig 2. So she's sort of grown with this process too and totally understands it. And, and she's very keen to never go back to work. So I'm like, I can support that because logistically it just won't work out. Like right in the beginning, like even before we had kids, she stopped working because it just didn't work out. She would work as a nurse and then she'd be weird shifts and I'd be gone 3:00 in the morning to get to an early flight. And it's like, oh, I'm away for 3 weeks. And when I get back, then she's on like 6 shifts,
Yeah.
So it just didn't work out. And then she's like, oh, I'm just going to stop working. So she stopped working years ago.
Do you remember gig 1? I mean, of course you do. Tell me about gig 1.
To this day, the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I walked out. So there were 70 of my colleagues in the room.
What sort of colleagues?
Oh, they used to work with me at Ogilvy. Some of them are still there, which is an ad.
Oh, you worked in advertising, yeah?
Yeah, ad agency, yeah. So one of them had booked the gig for me. It was kind of my leaving gift. So I went and I did it. But when I walked out, that bit where you're standing side of stage and they call your name and then you walk out. That walk from side of stage to the microphone stand is the longest walk you'll ever do in your entire life. I imagine that's like, dead man walking, that green mile or whatever, like it's frightening. I could hear my own heart beating. I was aware of every message my brain sent to every limb in my body. It's like left, right, no, right arm with left leg, you dingus, it was just, and I was convinced that the audience would be able to hear my heart if I got close to the microphone. It was that loud. And then as soon as I got to the microphone, I realized I've never touched the microphone in my life. I don't know how to hold it. I don't know if it comes out of the stand, what do you do, So it was nerve-wracking. And then I was holding the mic stand with my left hand and my right hand on the mic, and then the mic sort of came out because I was, squeezing it so hard. And then I just kind of held the mic stand and the mic, and that was almost like ski poles, but like a safety blanket. And yeah, then I completely went blank. I couldn't remember what I was going to say. But then luckily most of them were dressed in green because it was St. Patrick's Day. And then I sort of just went straight into conversation with them. I just went, oh, you guys look great. I can't wear green. I look like Shrek. And then they all started laughing. And while they were laughing, the stuff that I had written had come back to me. And then I just carried on with that.
Hannah Gadsby talks about making self-deprecating jokes about her appearance. Is that something that you have any view on in your comedy?
In the beginning, like you talk about what you know. Like I think it's a plus. I think it's a bonus to be able to talk about yourself and also to sort of normalize it, if you will. The amount of bigger women that get in touch and go, hey, thanks for just talking like you're just a normal human being. Same thing with the LGBT community. The amount of young lesbians or gay guys or trans or pan or will just go, hey, thanks for just not making it an issue. And I'm like, it is just a normal thing. And I don't want people to go, oh, my God, okay, we're going to talk about it now. Like, it's not family meeting time. We're just discussing, like, in reality, I'll talk about my hair. I talk about my hot flushes. I talk about, like everything that I'm going through. Of course, I'm going to share it with my audience. It's a conversation with friends. But I have sort of changed a bit. Like, I don't punch myself because I never pick on my audience. But I've also stopped sort of punching too hard to myself, not because I think it's mean, or like I would still do it in a heartbeat. As a starting comic, I would do it all over again exactly as I did before. But the reason I don't do too many fat punchlines anymore is because I don't want to give bullies material.
Yeah.
I don't know where my jokes go. Like, I know I'm a responsible user of a fat punchline, but I don't want some bully to take it to work and give it to someone at their work and harm someone. Because I heard a few times when people go, I didn't know about you, and then someone quoted a fat joke to, someone, and then they go, I looked you up, and I mean, I enjoy your comedy. I didn't appreciate that, or whatever, and then I thought, I don't want that. I don't want to give someone the ammunition. I'm almost shocked sometimes by how people perceive fatness or gayness. Like, I was in Adelaide and I was dragging my body. I was dragging this carcass up this hill, and this woman yelled, "You're beautiful." And I go, "Oh, I know." I said, "I never said I was ugly. I said I was too unfit for a hill." But people just immediately think the whole package. When you say anything about being overweight, they immediately go lazy, fat, stinky, they put that whole picture in there. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm literally just saying this hill was too hard for me. If it was anything else, I probably would be able to do it, but not that hill.
So it's like it's detached from any kind of self-loathing.
Yeah. I mean, I love me. And I even say that in my very first joke, in the Shrek thing, I said, "Oh, I can't wear green. I end up looking like Shrek." But it was mainly a colouring thing too. I just don't look good in green. And then the one woman went, "Oh," I said, "Don't worry. I love me a lot."
Yeah.
But I realised early on that anorexia isn't going to be the disease to take me one day. And I'm okay with that.
I'm Mia Friedman, and you're listening to No Filter with Urzila Carlson. How did you meet Julie?
At a rugby game. We're all good lesbians, man.
She wasn't a lesbian though then, was she?
No. No, she wasn't. I'm a flipper.
Were you? Had you had many partners before? Like, were you a long-termer?
I guess so. Although up until that point, my longest relationship was 4 years.
And you were, how old when you met Julie?
32.
And she was the same?
30, yeah.
What does it take to flip a straight woman?
Thanks to men, not much. Not much at all. Look, I honestly think, it took me a long time to kind of settle on lesbian, because I don't really know if I fit properly in that category. I don't think sexuality is as rigid as people like to think it is. Honestly, it's not. Like, just looking at, the people out there in the world and people who talk to me and approach me, and I'm telling you now, it's not as rigid as you think it is. Like, that has always been my approach. I still won't eliminate, say if I meet a man, that I can't fall in love with him, because it's sort of, to me, it comes more down to the person. And if you talk to anyone looking for someone, the very first thing they always say, must have a good sense of humor. And then they go on with the other characteristics. It's very rare for someone to start off with six-pack and big dick. Like, it is rare. Like, it's always like, must be kind, must be, And of course, all that stuff sort of dilutes a bit the older you get, then you just get to a point where I just want someone who's solvent and who with a heartbeat. Like, if you have those two things, then I'm into
That's so true. Were there sparks straight away, or did it start as a friendship, or did you just go to work immediately?
Oh, that makes it sound so predatory. Did you go to work immediately?
Well, in the flipping process.
No, I think we just connected immediately. Like, I immediately knew I was going to be friends with this person.
Yeah.
As soon as I met her.
And having babies, did that come up soon?
Yeah, because I mean, I was 32, she was 30, and I think probably within the first year, I said, I really want to have kids. And then we sort of had this, because it was 6-7 years before we started having kids. I said to her then, after, when comedy started getting, and we were traveling a lot more, and, sort of getting into a rhythm and to this routine where, where should we go? What are we doing next weekend? And it was real free and easy, And I said, I'm sort of getting to a point where, like, if we don't have kids soon, I don't know if we should bother. And then I said, we're going to try. And of course, fertile myrtle, she took on the first go.
I love when you say we're going to try. Like there's no such thing as an accidental pregnancy between a same-sex
that's
couple,
right.
is there?
No, there isn't. But I mean, she took the first go. So it's like, no, so actively give it a go. We're going to, and then, so now when I look at the kids, I'm like, what do people with no kids do?
All that time that you had.
Oh, I mean, honestly.
And money.
Or even now, like we're trying to logistically sort out when we can go for drinks with friends. So then I'm like, oh, no, the kids have a thing and someone else's kids have a thing. And now I'm like, okay, so everyone with no kids could do Friday, Saturday or Sunday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like we just need to say. So now we're trying to organize with, the kids and who's doing what and where can we put them,
People often talk about how they knew they wanted to have kids, but I'm always also interested in how you knew you were finished having kids.
Well, we're two, and my approach is sort of, it needs to be manageable. Like we're going to travel with these kids. I'll have one, you have the other one. If there's a third one, and usually in the big planes, it's like 4 seats. So now if you have an extra, now you have to choose, or like say if there's a fire in your house, one parent grabs one, the other parent grabs the other one. If there's a third one, now you have to pick who's your favorite, who's not going to make it,
It's political.
We kind of figured 2's enough. It's financially manageable. It's, so.
How did you end up in New Zealand? Far from home, far from Africa.
Yeah, there was so much going on, crime-wise. And at the time, I was seeing this girl and she had a 5-year-old son. And I kind of thought, I don't want to raise a kid in this because he started school. And in the back of his school book was the school rules printed in the school book. And it's like, do not bring a weapon to school. Do not assault anyone at school. Do not sexually violate anyone. I'm like, he's 5. I don't want him to know this kind of stuff. And then, we had a smash and grab where they smash a car window and grab everything inside while he's waiting at the lights, and armed robbery at work and a home invasion. And I just went, I have to leave. And then I saw an ad in the paper. On page 2 was a big ad, like a 5x8, the width of the page. And it says, do you want to immigrate? Why not New Zealand? And I thought, why not? I couldn't think of one reason why not. And then 3 months after that ad, we were on a plane. We got residence within 3 months because we were both on the skill shortage. And then,
My father and his family emigrated from South Africa in the 60s, kind of like an act of political protest because you couldn't really protest, could you, against apartheid? And I remember he says that when he came to Australia, he was so shocked by the headlines, or 2 things. Firstly, he said there were people protesting in the streets about things, and he said, I couldn't believe that they were allowed to do that and no one was getting shot. And the other thing that he said, the headline on the newspaper on the front page was something about cricket.
Yeah.
And it had been just after the Soweto riots when a whole lot of people had been murdered, and his family were just like shocked. They were like, what a country when a cricket game is the biggest piece of news on the front page. What were the big sort of cultural, oh my God moments when you arrived in New Zealand?
Well, just the news. I was like, the stuff people faff about here is nothing. You have nothing to complain about. Like for 15 weeks in this country, I'm not kidding. I did my research. I looked it up. 15 weeks. In the paper, every day there was an article about how New Zealand had run out of Marmite. It was after the earthquakes and the factory got damaged and they had to move it. And, of course, it's a byproduct of beer, so they couldn't make Marmite. And people didn't want Vegemite. They didn't want any of the other stuff. They were furious. 15 weeks they were talking about this. They called it Marmageddon. I was like, this is beyond ridiculous. I cannot believe this is a country and this is news. It just blew my mind.
But in a good way, right? Because it was I've chosen the best country in the world because it's not, this is a big issue, the lack of Marmite or the loss of a cricket game.
Yeah, but also just like that with the protesting. Like I tried to explain to people, you couldn't protest. You had to, like I remember we were nearly kicked out of the country in the mid to late 80s because my mum would sort of go, okay, if anyone asks, it's just your auntie and them staying last night. But she would sort of hide people in the house that either didn't have their pass or were late or whatever. And then when I got here, people were protesting stuff and they were very vocal with their complaints against the government. And I was like, Jesus, okay. And then there was the 81 protests here because the Springboks toured to New Zealand.
The
and then
South African rugby team. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So then there were massive riots and stuff. I had no idea about it. The first time I heard about it was when I moved here and people started talking about it. I'm like, you do realize in South Africa, the government controls the media 100%. Even now, the new government still controls the media. I worked for the newspaper for the old and for the new government. I know that firsthand. Like, we used to get death threats and we could tell from the caller ID, it's from the police station. Like, we knew, like they'd go, don't run that story. We weren't allowed to run stuff. So they're not going to go, hey, guys, so the rugby team went over there and turns out other people aren't that impressed with what we're doing here. They weren't going to tell us that. Are you crazy? Like, they just go, it was a successful tour. That's it.
Wow.
We don't know about the flower bombs and the protests and setting cars on
and
fire.
And the Free
and
Nelson Mandela pop songs.
Nothing. We don't know any about that. Yeah.
Do you remember the day he was released from prison?
Yeah. The first time I got to vote was in a free and fair election in South Africa with everyone. That was my first elections, right? But we were doing sit-ins, we were doing marches, we were like, yeah, we're just, and it was just amazing. Like, my brother was in the army and he brought back these cassette tapes for me of Rodriguez, Sugar Man. Oh, yeah. And it was all like anti-establishment and, fuck the government. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, no, don't play that anyway. I was like, okay. So for my 16th birthday, I got a tape deck, and I would take that to my friend's house and go, you will not believe this. And we would listen to that music and we were just like, we are the solution. We are part of the problem, but we are also part of the solution. We were doing sit-ins and marches and everything. And then the day he got released, we were all out like on the rugby field watching it. It was amazing.
Wow. I remember watching it. I was also in high school. And I remember watching it live. It was like at 2:00 in the morning as he walked from the prison.
Yeah. Yeah, because, that was because he was in a house for the last few years, but it was just, it was just amazing. And the vibe, like, the only other time I felt that vibe was before 2000, the year 2000, going in. People were so anxious, but also excited and shit, what's going to happen? And no one knows. Yeah. And then nothing. It was just amazing. Nothing. It's like, even back then, now with the anti-vaxxers, I feel like there's definitely that same group of people, that's affected, that was storing stuff.
Like the preppers, the doomsday preppers, yeah.
100%. Buying ammunition and stuff. Meanwhile, we're out in the street with our flags and, we were ripping off other people's flags, the old flag, the orange one, and we're like, no more. It was just amazing. Same with the 95 World Cup. I remember I had just come out of hospital and I was lying on my back, but all my friends collected the new flags wherever they could. Like, it was just everywhere. It's like the American flag all of a sudden. Because, you live in Australia, like people aren't putting flags everywhere. There's not a flag in every classroom and a flag. All of a sudden, that was in South Africa. We had flags everywhere. Everyone put the new flag on their car so people knew, listen, don't fuck with me with your shit stories about building a bunker and getting ammunition. Look at the car. And it was just so it was
really divided between the people who really embraced the idea of a black government and a black president and those who were like, it's the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah, but they were by far in the minority. By far. Like, it wasn't even... it's like if you go to a doctor's convention and try and do a head count on the anti-vaxxers, that's what it was like, like it was very, and almost like it just got squashed quickly.
Do you remember the last time you died on stage?
Jeez, I can't even remember the last one to stand up. Yeah, I mean, now I'm sort of more spoiled because it's always my audiences.
What does it feel like to die on stage?
It's not great. It's not a great experience. I tell you what, it is. Your mouth gets so dry, you can see the dust come out of your own face. And you can hear the audience. When it's so bad, they don't even want to be mean to you. Like if you just do a few bad jokes or a few, punchlines don't land, they go, oh, next, or,
Yeah.
But if it's so shit, they feel bad for you. They sort of just, ooh, and then they'll start get supportive. It's okay, doll. So
the sympathy support, that's bad. The pity.
Yeah. So that has happened to me a couple of times, both times in Auckland, and both times, thankfully, early on in my career, like the first 3 years, which is, look, it's inevitable. Everyone dies on stage. If you haven't yet, you will. So it's good that it happens early on and in front of 50 people in a bar than 5,000 people in a theatre.
How do you pick yourself up from it psychologically? Like, do you look at the material and go, okay, here's why I think it was the wrong audience for this joke, or I've got to work on the timing of that? Like, what do you do?
Right in the beginning, I realised it's never the audience's fault. It's impossible for everyone to not like you. But I realised early on too that they feed off me, which I didn't know in the first couple of years, because I still had a day job and I still, there was still, and trying to figure out immigration things for my family. And, so some days I was just dog tired, and then I'd go on stage and I'm like, okay. So I'm from South Africa. And then immediately they pick up on that. And you don't realize the audience is like one unit. Like that's why sometimes when someone yells something and they heckle, and then the person on stage take them down so hard, the audience is like, all right, calm down. Jesus, it's just having a good time. All of a sudden the audience then becomes sympathetic to this person. And it's because the room, you are one people.
Yes.
That's why when one person starts clapping, everyone will start clapping. If one person's, sort of laughs or snorts, you usually hear it when there's someone, and this is how you know you're all on par, when the one audience member will snort audibly, sort of out of tune with the rest, and then the rest of them all start laughing, and you're like, they are one now. I am talking to one entity in this room. And sort of, if I give them my energy and my truth, like I'm very honest with my audiences. Sometimes I go, Jesus, that one did not work. And then, like not too honest, but I definitely tell them what's happening with me. Or even while I was recording my Netflix special, I'll say, I'm getting a bit sweaty, so someone's going to come out and do this. And even in the special, they left in where I go, I wasn't in the top that I was supposed to wear because I spilled food on it, and I tell the audience, because I think we're in this sort of dance where I give them energy, they give it back to me, I give it to them. We're sharing these emotions with each other. They feeding off me, I'm feeding off them. And if I do have a bad gig, I have to let it go. And I think it's because I got to comedy late that I don't beat myself up on it, because I'm just like, if I still worked a normal job, you don't go in and nail every day of the week. You don't go, today I was productive, I met all the deadlines. Now you go, oh my God, today was a total waste of time for me and the company. Like you just have those days. So it's a bad day at the office. That's how I see it.
Tell me about Perry. Menopause.
Oh, that's a delight. Right now, put the mask on. And as soon as I put it on, I got a hot flush. So now I'm in the shop and I'm just sweating, and I'm sweating under this mask. And I'm like, people will look at me and go, that one's got the fever. And I just want to walk around with a T-shirt and go, I don't have the fever. I'm a woman of a certain age.
Not COVID, just Perry. Fuck, it's true. How long have you been going through it for?
I started just as we went into the first lockdown. So I reckon March. I sort of went for tests in February, the blood test, to confirm that. I was like, I'm either going crazy, something's going on. And then they go, oh, yeah, your hormones are indicating that you are indeed perimenopausal. I'm like, wonderful.
What were the symptoms for you?
I was just really agitated, weird bleeding, and then no bleeding, and then just all over the shop emotionally. And I'm not like that. I'm a pretty, level-headed kind of gal. And so everything started getting on my tits, and I was like, something's not right. And the last time everything got on my tits was when I had a tumor on my adrenal gland. So I thought, I better go to the doctor and get that checked out. And then they go, no, you're perimenopausal. And so, I mean, it's kind of good that I know. And if, like, I feel fine. Like, my emotions have settled a lot.
Did you do anything to help with that? Did you take HRT?
No, but I'm totally open to it.
Yeah.
If I need to, I will. No, I started exercising more, and I think I'm too tired now to have a mood swing.
The hot flushes are fun though, aren't they? I've got a friend who says it feels like there's a thermos. She loves it. She said, I feel like there's electricity inside me. And I'm like, really? I just get really hot.
Devil. It's the devil with a heater. It's not electricity. It's the devil. Satan's up in there.
Have you noticed anything that triggers them?
If I get nervous, or like if I get that adrenaline hit that I get before I get on stage, then I feel, or, you know, just sometimes like if I've got, and this could just be, but sometimes I'll be like, I went shopping with the kids and they haven't been to the shops because we're technically still in lockdown, but we've got a bit more now. We can go retail shopping, right? So I took them with me, but I had them put the masks on, and, you know, they're still at an age where I go, don't touch that, stop licking that, you know. So, and just because we were in the shops and there were quite a lot of people, and it was our first trip out, and it was kind of overwhelming, you know, and just go, guys, just say, and I think just that being riled up, and the next minute, poof, I got my glow.
And what do you do when you're on stage and that happens?
I just go with it. I now have a little face cloth, a black one that I put on my little table, and I'll just dab. But I have to say, once I get my rhythm, like the trick now is I have intense waterproof makeup.
Yes.
So I do not sweat that off. And then I even put that, like you get this anti-sweat thing for your face that you put on like a primer. Doesn't really work that well, but it says shaves about 10% of the glow off. So then I'll go out and I'll start, and I'll just say to them, I'll go, I'm a woman of a certain age, deal with it.
Yeah.
And I just make sure that I wear clothes that you can't see if I get all sweaty and gross, and then that's it. But I stress less about it on stage because I see people's photos, and also they only realise that you're sweating because they're quite a distance away. They only realise that you're getting gross when you start mopping it from your brow.
It's true.
Like I know when I watch other comics, and if they're like mopping and keep drawing attention to it, now all I can think about is their sweat. But sometimes when they're like, I'll watch even a special on Netflix and the comic is sweaty, and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly, it's hot up there.
Yeah.
And I never think about it again. But if they make
a big deal
if you
of
think
it.
about that famous special of Robin Williams where he's so sweaty it looks like someone poured water on him, but it's just sweat. And you're like, geez, he's having fun up there. That's all I think. I don't think, oh my God.
It's so true. Normalising it helps a lot. So just finally, your show, it's personal. It's about the dichotomy between the things we reveal and the things we can't ask each other about.
Yeah.
Do you think I've been too personal or not personal enough in our conversation?
No, you've been just a good balance, a good balance. But, I mean, you've asked stuff that I wouldn't have put out on socials.
Yeah, right. So what's your line for socials? Everyone has lines.
I put nothing personal. My kids have never featured on any social media that I have. Nothing. I put nothing out.
I know. I went Googling to try to find a picture of you and your wife.
Yeah.
And there are so many people who aren't your wife who come up in that search, like journalists, all different people. And I'm like,
I know. It's so funny. It's like, and some of my friends go, oh my God, I made it. I got a message last week from a friend of mine, sent me a screen grab. She go, I finally made it on the Urzila Carlson wife list.
You and your harem.
Yeah, I know. It's like, all sister wives, mate. Come on, let's all get along.
So that's your line. You don't write that, but you'll talk about on social, like, you know, your rumbles with anti-vaxxers and things like that. Do you use it more in a performative way?
Yeah, I would like to think that if I didn't have this job, I wouldn't really be on socials. I mean, I enjoy the interactions, and I love, love, love the people that I've met through social media that I've become friends with, and that, I actually see now. And also, some people have become sort of a support for me, and I've become a support for them, and I love all of that. But there's so much nasty out there, and that's what I try and explain to my 8.5-year-old at the minute too. I'm like, there's more people out there on socials, and like, if you meet them, that's different. But on socials, it's a different beast, and you have to be so careful. So no, and also, I mean, Julie's very shy, so potentially the kids could be very shy, and my boy is very shy. So I don't want to put them out in the world, and then when they're 16, go, I can never get that back.
I'm so excited that you're coming to Australia. The tour sounds phenomenal. I will have my fingers and toes crossed that you won't have to be in any quarantine.
Thank you. Otherwise, if I am, could you send me a mug, please?
Yeah. Oh, do you know when I travel with a mug?
So do I now.
Oh, I always have, because I can't deal with, I don't care if I forget my toothbrush, but I like to drink my tea out of buckets.
Yes.
So it's like drinking out of, you're right, someone's fucking belly button, those teacups in a hotel. Thank you for listening to this episode of No Filter. For complete tour and ticket information about Urzila's shows, visit Urzila Carlson, that's URZILA Carlson.com, and livenation.com.au. The assistant producer of No Filter is Lucy Neville, and the executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman, and if you want more of us in your life, come and visit the Mamamia app. And just by reading or listening to our content, just by listening to this podcast today, you are helping to fund girls in schools in some of the most disadvantaged countries in the world. Through our partnership with Room to Read, we're currently sending 300 girls to school every single day, and our aim is to get to 1,000 and then 10,000. Because at Mamamia, our core purpose is to make the world a better place for women and girls.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.